how fabulous our public, our education is here.
Are you a Democrat?
No, I'm a Republican.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, but we probably won't be anymore. Well, anyway, I've got, John Thornton. Okay, I see your name on the thing. But anyway, he came back every single year to the legislature and asked for more monies, built that up, so now he was ready for his parochial schools. He's
just like WEAC. They're back every year for more money.
Well, WEAC, I agree with you there. I think we need to trim back or even get rid of the union.
Well,
I am not pro-union for teachers, and my mother was a teacher.
I'm glad to hear that.
Later, John.
Thank you for your call.
Thank you, Fred.
Bye now.
Okay.
Hello there. You're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Since the election of Bill Clinton in 1992, we Americans, with sadness, have learned week after week to have different stories come out from around the country pointing up the reality that we have in the White House today, a draft-dodging womanizer who is a pathological liar. It's a very dangerous thing for America and a dangerous thing for the world. What respect can other people have for America with this man and his wife and the values they espouse occupying the White House?
And now we've got a busy signal. Okay. Okay, Freddie, we're going to get into the show here and then make our call in a minute. All right, today the U.S. House of Representatives started their Banking Commission hearings on the Whitewater affair and some of the things that happened down in Little Rock, Arkansas, Fred, during the tenure of now President Clinton. At that time, he was governor of the state of Arkansas. As you know, there was some shenanigans down there, Fred, according to a lot of people. There was a lot of things that just weren't run right, and a man named Larry Nichols, who was an old friend of Bill Clinton's, was appointed to a cushy job with the Arkansas Development Finance Authority back in the 80s. Of course, Clinton thought that that would be a good place to run some of his schemes through, and unfortunately, Larry didn't go along with it, Fred. So we're going to let you take it back again, Fred, and I'm going to try and get that call again.
All right.
Because we got a busy signal last time.
Yeah, the Whitewater development was one of the schemes that our president, who was then the governor of Arkansas, was trying to put through. And there have been some shenanigans there that have been in the papers, and there's a hearing going on in the House of Representatives at the present time, and Congressman Leach is the chairman, and he's from Iowa. and we're calling Larry Nichols in Little Rock, Arkansas, who had been appointed by the president.
Thank you for using AT&T.
There, we got a call going through Freddie.
Hello.
Larry,
Yes.
well, we had a rough time getting through to you. I understand you're on another talk show right up till 9.
Yeah, I just got off. I'm stacked up back to back. Been a
Okay.
day.
Well, we're glad to have you on the program tonight. Sorry for the delay. I was calling with a AT&T calling card here, and we had to make sure that we got through to you.
Okay.
Well, we're glad to have you on once again. And Larry, now you were a close friend of Bill and Hillary Clinton when they were in the governor's mansion in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Right.
And could you tell the viewers exactly what your job was when you were working for the Clintons?
Yeah, let me give just a quick background. I've known
All right.
Hillary since the mid to late 70s, did projects throughout the 80s for them, and in 1988 they created a position, or Bill did, of marketing director at the Arkansas Development Finance Authority, specifically for me. There wasn't one before me, there wasn't one after. When I went to work there, I thought I was to promote that agency, which was to make low-interest, tax-exempt bond loans to create jobs, create low-income housing. What I found out, I wasn't there to market the agency, I was there for damage control. And the damage, which, by the way, it didn't bother me. Show you I'm not a good guy. It didn't bother me a bit. I figured if I'd covered it up, I'd get one of the loans like Webb Hubble and his family did for $2.85 million. Don Tyson of Tyson Foods, $10 million, and they didn't pay them back. When I started looking to see if, since people were buying these bonds, if they weren't paying them back, somebody was going to sue. That's when I found out that Bill Clinton's best friend, Dan Lester, was laundering drug money from Mena, Arkansas through the state agency that I worked at. And when I found that out, I went to Bill, couldn't have any part of that, and told him he had 2 weeks to clean it up or tell the truth or I would. They destroyed me in the media. In 1989, I proved that the media and all the things they said wasn't true. And in 1990, I filed, I guess you'd call it the infamous lawsuit that brought Jennifer Flowers, Whitewater. Most of the stuff you hear about today was filed in 1990.
So you're kind of the forerunner of everything that's kind of talked about now. Most of that came true, and some of it is still being revealed, and some is yet to be revealed.
Right.
Now, today the House started their portion of the so-called Whitewater hearings, and what's your sense of what's going to go on with Jim Leach? He's a rather liberal Republican from the state of Iowa. Do you actually think that they're going to get to the bottom of the whole Whitewater affair?
Well, I had hopes last week. I think you and I talked about it. Leach's people called me. I spent about 14 hours on the phone with them last week. I presented documents. I proved everything that I had said to them. I had to fax them stuff, which I did. They were flabbergasted. I would say also, folks, you'll be scared to death at what they don't know. I kept telling the guy last week, do you realize your hearings start next week and you don't know any of this? I found out today, however, that I will not be testifying.
Okay. Did anyone at all contact you whether to testify or not?
Yeah, Leach's people did. Last week, that was what I was saying.
Okay.
Just today, I called them back, and they're not going to have me testify. They said that Clinton's people would make it a political football since I'm the most renowned Clinton hater, quote unquote, in the world.
Well, you just happen to have some inside information that evidently they don't want to get out to the masses if they can keep it localized. Now, you being in Little Rock, Arkansas, sitting from the inside looking out, you knew the art of cover-up and the art of destroying your enemies, because it eventually happened to you yourself.
I guess that's my reward. That's what I did for a living.
Okay, now, so in 1990, you had a lawsuit and you hired an attorney.
Right.
And that attorney just so happened to live across the hallway from Jennifer Flowers.
Right.
Could you tell the viewers what happened to that attorney that you had hired?
Sure. He was a bit of a special attorney. He called me, and he said during the 1991 campaign that he knew I was telling the truth and he wanted to represent me. He felt bad that I was getting bludgeoned. So when I met him, now this is how quick it happened, folks. Excuse me. I met him. He called me on a Monday. I went and met him on a Tuesday. I found out he wasn't just a regular attorney. He was a special attorney. He was Jennifer Flowers' neighbor. He had a video camera out. He was at the end of a hall. He was in the end apartment. Hers was the first apartment on the right. He had a camera put in his peephole because there was a lot of vandalism in the halls. He caught Bill Clinton going in and out of Jennifer Flowers' apartment with the key on numerous occasions. Of course, had a video of it.
Okay.
On Thursday, we were going to file some motions. He started getting some threatening phone calls, and then I found him on a Saturday. They had three white guys, short haircuts, he says, looked like state police, came in, demanded the tape. At first, he didn't give it to them. They broke both his elbows with karate-type blows. He finally gave them the tape, and then they beat him and left him for dead.
And so he was found, but they got the tape, right?
They got the tape. Well, there's another one, but it doesn't matter.
But they're pretty good at silencing the opposition. So
I've had 3 witnesses that have, were about to testify or talk to reporters that were killed out from under me.
could you go into those 3? Who were those 3?
I'll give you one, for example, to show you. Florence Martin. She was a bookkeeper at MENA. When the Texas Rangers, she was in Seymour, Texas, when the Texas Rangers found her, she had 3 bullet holes in the back of her head. Somebody had pushed her onto the bed, stuck a pillow to the back of her head, and shot her 3 times with a small caliber pistol.
Now she had...
she was a bookkeeper at MENA.
Okay.
It was all over her house. I mean, they didn't rob her. And the only thing they found was my phone number. And, of course, she had been communicating with me.
Now, when you mean MENA, was she working for the...
Worked for the aircraft hangar.
Okay, now MENA, Arkansas, for those of you who don't know too much about it, it's still yet to be uncovered fiasco that involves not only the Clinton administration while they were in the governorship of Arkansas, but also it ties in with President George Bush and Oliver North. But MENA, Arkansas was a drug drop point for the Contra. What the deal was the Contras needed arms, and the Congress would not allow arms to be shipped directly with taxpayers' money. So a scheme was created where arms were shipped down to the Contras and in South America for the Civil War down there, and in return, cocaine and sometimes money were shipped back to MENA, Arkansas, and from there the cocaine was distributed throughout the United States, and the money was siphoned off and sent who knows where.
But the money was laundered at the agency I worked at. And at least I found $771 million. I mean, not all of it.
Million?
$771 million through a guy that was Bill Clinton's best friend, Dan Laster.
You mean Lassiter got a few months in prison for $771 million worth of cocaine?
As a matter of fact, he did, and then when he got out, Bill Clinton gave him a full and complete pardon. And by the way, do you know in the Waco hearings you heard Bill Clinton talking about that little girl that was raped by Koresh or whatever?
Yes.
How bad he said that guy was?
Uh-huh.
Dan Laster, I have the testimony in the grand jury. He didn't go to jail for selling cocaine. He went to jail for giving it away to 14 and 16-year-old girls in exchange for sexual favors.
I understand that the President Clinton and his brother got in on some of those parties.
They did. I mean, we've got testimony after testimony after testimony.
Where there was minors and younger ladies.
Right.
Certainly Hillary wasn't hanging around.
No.
Okay, so that's death number 1 was tied in with the MENA, Arkansas, and the drug trafficking.
But now let me clarify something on me.
All right.
I don't know, nor does Terry Reid. We don't know for sure that the government was selling the arms. Well, number one, the cocaine was not coming from the Contras. They would go down. MENA, Arkansas was a refurbishing center for the CIA. They would take aircraft that they used in different theaters for covert missions. When they were through with them, they'd bring them back to MENA. They'd repaint them, give them new serial numbers, new IDs, and then send them somewhere else. What was happening, Barry Seal, who is a guy that is now dead.
Yeah, there was a TV movie made about his story.
There was a movie made about him. He got the contract through Southern Air to fly supplies to the Contras. He would drop off supplies to the Contras, fly over to Colombia and Panama, because obviously those covert flights, when they came back to the States, didn't get checked by the DEA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what they did, Barry Seal developed this incredible plan, and he would deliver guns and supplies for the government
And bring back coke.
backhaul dope and money.
Okay.
Now, when the government found out about it, by the time they found out about what he was doing, here's where their accomplices. They knew if the American people knew that their supply line was backhauling dope, that they would cut out support for the Contras.
Okay, so they had to keep that quiet and keep everybody happy and still keep the guns flowing to the Contras.
That's right.
So eventually, it turned into over $700 million, and you say that some of that got siphoned.
ADFA.
Okay, some of that got funneled through ADFA, but how do you hide that much money?
Well, it was more than that. They were running, as the Iran-Contra hearings brought out, about $100 million a month.
Wow.
And that was for some 30 or 40 months.
Boy. Okay, so that's a lot of money. That made a lot of people rich. Now, you said you had two other close associates or people involved with you that were murdered. What's number two?
Well, number two was a doctor, a dentist, actually, in Hot Springs. And I was setting him up to talk with Ambrose Evans Pritchard. He called me. They were supposed to meet on a Friday. He called me on about a Tuesday and said he was scared. It was getting too hot. He had to leave the state. I begged him not to go, but he went. I had to call Ambrose and reschedule for the following Tuesday. I had to call Ambrose Evans Pritchard of the Sunday Telegraph that Sunday in between and tell him not to bother, that the guy had died in a plane crash.
Now, who's Ambrose Pritchard?
He is a reporter for the London Sunday Telegraph, probably the foremost reporter that has written more about the Clintons than anybody in the world.
Now, it's almost like, Larry, that you have to read a foreign newspaper to find out what's going on with this Whitewater thing. I know London's been really on top of this.
It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I don't want to sit and try to say to your audience or anybody that, the media gets in a dark room or a smoke-filled room and plans what will or won't be on the media. But I got to tell you, every media in this nation has the documents I've provided, and you have not seen one story. Not one. If anything, the media does stories to knock us down and to cover for him.
Okay, so now we got a mysterious plane wreck, and was that ever investigated to be an accident or on purpose? Or?
Well, it's an interesting thing. In the same week, two aircraft, almost identical, one carrying Rogers, my guy, and the other carrying a big attorney here in Arkansas that was one of Clinton's people. Both of them crashed exactly the same way. They're flying in the sky, and all of a sudden they just crash. No fire, no nothing.
Okay, what's the?
So Friday was the other.
What happened to the third person that you knew?
Well, the third one is more recent, about 6 months ago. Robert Bates. He was testifying to Terry Reed about MENA. He was a mechanic at MENA. He talked to Terry. Terry goes down. His attorney had to leave the town, had to leave Arkansas to go back to New York, so they weren't going to be able to take his discovery when they said. But Terry Reed went on down anyway and talked to him. 2 days later, they found him dead, said that he had drank mouthwash and killed himself.
That's a terrible way to die, that mouthwash.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, now, Larry, they say that, so everyone asks the question why, if there's not only those three that are close to you, but I understand also photographer that had worked for you.
Right, John Hillier, the man. There wouldn't be a me if there hadn't been a John Hillier.
And he turned up dead here not too long ago.
About 4 weeks ago, he went into his dentist's office and just stopped breathing and died.
Okay, and he was in his 40s, wasn't he?
He was 53,
Okay.
but he was a health food nut. He was a physical fitness kind of guy. I mean, you'd have thought he was young. I'm 45, and you'd have thought he's younger than I was.
Okay, now people want to know what has happened to Larry Nichols since 1990 in this lawsuit? Has there been any personal threats or attacks?
Lord, yeah. I mean, my
against
ribs
you?
have been broken 4 or 5 times.
Your house? What's been broken?
Ribs.
Oh,
I've been mugged and poisoned. I was in the hospital for a week, had some kind of pesticide poisoning. That's why my voice sounds like it does. But you can't prove Clinton did it, so you can't allege that he did that.
now with that
Just muggable kind of guy, I guess.
with that pesticide poisoning, I understand that your symptoms are similar to the Desert Storm troops that are coming back. Some of those same symptoms, and that what Hussein used on the troops over there was a similar substance.
I don't know about that, but my symptoms were simply this. You end up with hives, but they're on the inside of your lungs, and you stop breathing. And then you have to go to the hospital immediately, and they have to give you like adrenaline, and you can start breathing.
Now you normally you're not around pesticides. You don't work on a farm. You're a city boy, and yet here you come down with an insecticide poisoning.
Right. Pretty weird.
Okay, now there are rumors, Larry, that there's something like I've seen on the internet that there's a 35 name body count. It seems to be continued to be added to. Have you?
Oh, it's about 40 plus now.
These are people.
Again, let's be very careful.
Okay.
You and I are not saying that Clinton had anybody killed. These are people that die, for example, of cutting their head off with a kitchen knife, and it's ruled a suicide. And if you take all of these people, what makes them mysterious deaths is that they're all somehow friends or connected to Clinton. And it seems to be that anybody that's a real close friend to Clinton that's about to talk, or an acquaintance of Clinton that knows something that's about to talk, commits suicide. And they do it in a funny way. Cut their head off with a kitchen knife, shoot themselves in the back of the head, that kind of stuff.
Those kind of unusual suicides.
Yeah.
Now, I know there was another unusual one that was a little more well publicized here recently was Al Gore's, one of his confidants and Walter Mondale's confidants jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and left behind a brand new automobile, a Lexus or whatever it is. And he was in his 40s and quite a flamboyant character, and they said he had everything to live for and nothing to die for, but he's come up with what I call the CIA flu. I don't know what you call it, but
well, I don't know, but it did happen, and I guess we're avoiding maybe the most famous of all suicides, which is that of Vince Foster.
Yeah, we were going to go into that. Now, that's been pretty much taken care of in the hearings that have been going on for the last couple of weeks over in the Senate. It appears like D'Amato is not going to really dig in and get to the bottom of this. But in a way, you want D'Amato to get to the bottom of it, but in another way, you know that I personally feel like I wouldn't put it past them to take D'Amato out. Now, he had a mysterious heart attack a few months ago, and then it was revealed to the media, to the public, that he'd had a mistress while being married to his former wife. He had a mistress that just happens to be Jewish and a millionaire, but the press played it up like D'Amato sneaking around with this Jewish millionaire, which doesn't really have nothing to do with, Jewish doesn't have anything to do with it. But anyway, it was an attempt to smear D'Amato, and it almost appears now like they've gotten to D'Amato, and he's not going to get to the bottom of it.
Well, let me say this. Relative to Vince Foster, folks, I don't know if he killed himself or somebody killed him. But here's what I know, and here's what I can prove. And listen to me tight. Vince Foster did not die in Fort Marcy Park the way they said he did. And you might say, well, how can I prove it? I think you've got the Secret Service memo To top its title 2551, that's the Senate Banking Committee file number from when they investigated Vince Foster's death, so it's not something they don't know about. And in the second paragraph, here's what it says. I don't have it in front of me, but I can nearly quote it. On 7/20/93, unknown time, the body of Vincent Foster was found in his car in the Fort Marcy area near the George Washington Turnpike. Vince Foster apparently committed suicide by shooting himself in the head. A .38 caliber revolver was found in the car. Now, that is a far cry from him, supposedly, according to the FBI and the Robert Fisk report, pulling into the parking lot at Fort Marcy Park, walking some 700 feet on a dirt trail, and by the way, according to that same report, did not get one microscopic speck of dust on his shoes, sat down on a bank by a berm, as they call it, by a cannon, depending on which cannon, they change cannons on us, shot himself in the head.
And evidently, when they found him, the blood trickle had run uphill.
The blood coming from his nose ran up towards his ear, and the blood from his mouth ran up towards his eye, with him laying at about an 18-degree angle with his feet below his head.
I understand also that his body was covered with carpet fibers of some type, like they'd rolled him in a carpet and hauled him out there and dumped him or something.
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
It sounds like something we've
Number
seen.
one, how did he get 700 feet? If they didn't carry him, how did he get 700 feet without getting a speck? And I'm talking about a microscopic speck of dust on his shoes. You
And then
do it.
On top of that, he was kind of laid out like he was already in a funeral parlor.
Well, they said when I first came out with the Circle of Power video, and we were talking about the inconsistencies of the body, and I said that the gun was in the wrong hand. ABC released, which is the only time they've ever been shown, pictures of, sort of like the crotch to the belly button, showing the revolver in his right hand. Here was the problem with that picture. There were leaves, red and gold and brown leaves all around the hand and the body.
So it could have been a
He
doctor.
died on July the 20th.
It could have been a doctored photo of somebody else.
Well, there were no leaves on the ground
Yeah.
in July at that park. Not to mention the fact that I had the Secret Service memo the whole time. So, I knew they were lying with the picture, but I just didn't know how to prove it.
So there could be a possibility that he was either forced to commit suicide or was actually murdered. They found this bogus suicide note something like 4 or 6 days later.
Well, now that's weird, too.
Just conveniently, it had the name, the one piece, it was torn into, 28 pieces, and one of them was missing.
Which was the one with his signature.
And the piece that was missing was the one that had supposedly his signature on it, signing off on his own death warrant there.
Right, and
Yeah.
not one fingerprint. And I dare anybody to do it. Paper is a great receptacle for fingerprints. Take a piece of paper, anybody that's listening, tear it in half, and tell me how you did it without getting a fingerprint on it. Now, in his case, he tore it, as you said, in 28 pieces without a fingerprint on one of them.
And threw it in the bottom of a briefcase, which they looked through several times, and lo and behold, 6 days later, it turns up in that same briefcase.
Well, and there's another little story about the briefcase that D'Amato and them have not told you. The briefcase was found, if you go to the police report, when they found the body supposedly at 6:02. Remember that time, because we'll get into it in a minute. When they found the body at 6:02, when the police came to make the ID, the Park Police, they went to the car. They found his suit coat laying over the seat, a bottle of wine cooler, a 4-pack of wine coolers with one missing, and his briefcase in the car. They found his wallet, and that's how they ID'd him, right? How did that briefcase end up in his office 4 to 6 days later when they found the note?
Well, that's just,
How did it do it?
that's the magic of Bill Clinton and Hillary.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Larry, I'm going to take the first call here, And I'm going to have to put you on hold while I take it because we got kind of an antiquated system here with only 2 lines.
Okay.
So this will give you a chance to grab a glass of water if you like. I'll take this caller's call and then we'll relay it back to you.
Very good.
Okay, just a second. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Interesting program. Say, I'd like to have you ask him a question on why is press covering this up like they're doing? And second is, does he think that there will be enough information to come out that will remove Bill Clinton from office? Thank you.
In the form of an impeachment or just a loss at the polls?
Well, maybe they should take him to court with an indictment or something if he's guilty. I mean, and then you could ask him, will this look bad for the Republicans if they help try to cover this up?
Okay, thanks a lot, caller. Larry?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this caller wants to know, why do you think the press is helping cover this up nationwide? A lot about what we're finding out from you and other brave individuals out there that are willing to get the word out. Why do you think the mainline press is covering this up?
Well, I don't want to come across as saying that the media gets in a room, as I told you earlier. But here's what I believe we can attribute it to. 10 years ago, maybe 15, there were 2,200, as an example, 2,250 independently owned newspapers. Today, the same 2,000, it's not 2,200 anymore, but the same 2,000 newspapers are owned by the same 50 people.
They seem to be swallowing them up, don't they?
Well, now, you take a big clue is look at NAFTA and GATT. The same people that profited and benefited from NAFTA, GATT, and the Mexican bailout. That's what they are. The same people that own those the same 50 people and corporations that own the media, the newspapers.
Now, one of those media magnates cut a deal with Newt Gingrich to, well, you know, it was a several million-dollar deal to write 2 books, and Newt had to back off and take a buck and then wait for the royalties to come in. But that guy...
Now, that's Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, Murdoch's going to come back before the same House eventually on some legislation that could affect his industry directly, and a lot of people are saying Newt's in a conflict of interest. But that shows you how high they can get and how they can buy people off. And, I mean, you lay $4 million in anybody's lap, a lot of people will take that and run with it.
I mean, and that's exactly the way it works. Now, as you know, Rupert Murdoch has not been exactly one of the Clinton favorite people. However, it's equally as wrong for Gingrich to be bought out as Clinton.
That's
but
right.
You, at least with Gingrich, you see how it works.
Uh-huh. He's a little more open.
Right.
You know, I think it's maybe that the Republicans just haven't learned how to steal as good as the Democrats.
Well,
But they're catching up.
Yes. Remember this. The day Bob Dole announced that he was running for president, it was in the paper that his campaign co-finance chair is none other than Jackson Stevens. Jackson Stevens, folks, is the same power broker. There's 3 power brokers behind Bill Clinton. Jack Stevens, Don Tyson, and Dan Laster.
And Tyson owns the biggest chicken operation in the world.
Right?
Stevens is he's a billionaire, isn't he?
As the largest marketing stock brokerage firm outside of Wall Street in the world.
And Dan Lassiter must have a few million hid back from all the money he helped funnel.
You bet.
So now, I just heard recently, since we're getting into the Stevens and the Tysons, just a couple of weeks ago, Stevens and Tyson both jumped off the Clinton bandwagon, jumped on the Dole bandwagon.
Yeah, that's a lie. What happened, we had a reporter that had found out, we had proof that Stevens and Tyson were putting big dollars into Republicans. Just so happened it was the same Republicans that were investigating them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when that reporter called them for their comment, the next day, they break with the story that the reason they were doing it was because it was bad business since Clinton had been elected president.
Mm-hmm.
That was their spin.
All right, well, I wanted to, this caller that called in, he wanted to know another quick answer to a question. Do you think that there's enough to either impeach Clinton or cause him to lose